You are 16 years old. Your favorite movie is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and your favorite song is Oldie by Odd Future. You've had your driver's license for 2 months, and every weekend you walk around the mall parking lot with your friends. The people you talk to don't care for the things that you like, or rather, they have a serious aversion to hearing you talk about the things that you like. At night, after your parents go to sleep, you put a pair of earbuds in and listen to music that, for the first time in your life, feels discovered only by you. You lay back in bed and close your eyes. This is mine, you think, and no one can take it from me. Hey everyone, welcome back to the echo chamber where two PNGs make up your self-worth. When years ago I posted my semi-viral MF Doom video, I had no idea it would send me down a rabbit hole full of all kinds of music and art. If you had told my younger self that I currently enjoy listening to noise music tapes, I would have pulled out my Tyler the Creator lock screen on my iPhone 8 and lectured you on real music. But the older that I get, the more I realize that that's just the kind of person that I am. I'm the type of guy who has to know everything about everything when I join a community. So for me, half of the joy of finding new music is searching for it and researching it and learning about what went into making it. And honestly, I think that comes from two different places. The first being that it's just my nature to be a completionist. I made a joke about this in my last video, but that's kind of half the reason why I love video games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's because I love looking at a checklist of things to do and doing them one by one until the progress bar is full. And then I get this intense feeling of satisfaction. And the same goes for my hobbies. I still think that one of the cruelest things a company has ever done is Criterion numbering their DVDs, because now my collection is forever incomplete until I can look at one through whatever the fuck and see them all in succession. And for the music lovers watching, the exact same thing goes for collecting records. I've shelled out ridiculous amounts of money to get bootleg vinyl records from shady websites just to finish an artist's discography in my collection. I ordered my copy of Solace by Earl Sweatshirt off of a link on a Reddit post, and it took over a year and a half to come, and when it did come, it smelled like kerosene and barely played. But it's still one of my proudest finds. According to my therapist, these are obsessive-compulsive tendencies and are going to wear me out until my passion becomes work. But hell, what does she know? I'm not burning out at all. At all. At all. But here's the thing, I don't think that my obsession with knowledge and collecting physical media is just a me problem. There's a culture brewing online, a spectrum of people that I want to map out in this video. These groups are made up of people with A24 tattoos and rate your music links in their bios, and likely many people watching this video right now. Within these platforms and their grotesque fan bases lies a big contradiction, and I want to spend some time unpacking it to answer the question, why does liking things suck now? But before we unpack that, a message from our sponsor. Hi, I'm Jackson Burns and I'm the sponsor of this video. If it isn't obvious by now, I have a great love and affinity for music and movies, so I would be stupid not to monetize that as quickly as possible. And because no small YouTuber would be complete without shitty perks, and because I do have bills to pay, it would mean a lot to me if you would check out my Patreon, where you'll have exclusive access to weekly bonus content like What's in My Bin, where I review different records in my collection, or a new segment, Beers and Blu-rays, where I review a movie and an alcoholic beverage. Yes, shockingly, I am 21 years old. Thanks for sitting through my shameless promotion. Now back to the video. You are 17 years old. Your favorite movie is Do the Right Thing, and your favorite song is E. coli by Earl Sweatshirt and The Alchemist. Occasionally, your friends ask about the music you're listening to, although your rants are usually turned into a spectacle to a closed-minded audience, as opposed to a friendly inquiry. You feel silly for thinking that they would actually want to know about your passions. Desperate for some semblance of a nurturing community, you find your way online and start posting your opinions. Your taste is labeled basic, and homework is rapidly assigned. No, not that spectrum. As someone who's been in the online music space for a long time now and who is about to graduate film school, for better or for worse, I've spent a lot of time in artistic spaces. So what I've done is put together a spectrum of the different types of people that I have encountered throughout my time. Whether it's people who are just fans of art, or producers, or directors, or editors, or musicians, it's likely that they fit somewhere on this spectrum. I call it the I like this thing spectrum, because while it does pertain to art fanatics, I think that it also can be applicable to any group that contains a lot of passionate people. So here's how it works. On one side of the spectrum, you have the know-it-alls. These are people who seem to have dedicated their life to knowing everything about a certain topic. You ask them about an obscure Indian film from the 90s that's only available on VHS, and they could spit back fun facts about it. You mentioned that you like the bass on that one Alex G demo, and they know the pedals he used. But what separates a know-it-all from a knowledgeable person is the pretension. This is the type of person to ask you to name 5 songs off of an artist's B-sides when you wear a band t-shirt in public. This is the type of person to write like an essay in the YouTube comments when you said "in rainbow" instead of "in rainbows." They're not necessarily anti-popularity as long as it's the right type of popularity. The Michael Mann and Ridley Scott popularity as opposed to the Greta Gerwig and Russo brothers popularity. The know-it-all is purposefully argumentative and dismissive of other people because their joy doesn't come from sharing their passion, it comes from knowing more than others. The know-it-all is also in direct and constant combat with the opposite side, which I'll label the domestic. This is what many people call a film bro, but I feel like that term has been hijacked and isn't all-encompassing, so I'm using this one instead. The domestic is the inverse of the know-it-all. They stay close to home. They only consume content that others before them have deemed great, and they're proud of the fact that they haven't chosen to branch out more. They could write entire essays on why The Godfather Part 2 is the best movie of all time without stating a single opinion about the movie. They would argue that the Beatles are the greatest band of all time because of all the records they broke. Their grading metric is based on Oscar wins and streaming numbers, and they'll be sure to stay away with anything involving loose narrative structure, subtitles, or a general lack of color. I hear that if you mention the queer undertones in Fight Club, their frontal cortex opens up like Drake in that one Sprite commercial. Much like the know-it-all, the domestic's enjoyment comes from a place of supremacy rooted in insecurity. They're so terrified of being wrong in their opinion that they choose the easy, agreeable take and stay away from anything that might challenge their idea of what makes art great. So now that we have each end of our spectrum covered, let's just do a quick lightning round and fill in this blank space. We have the layman, a completely harmless person who enjoys a movie or a song here or there, but isn't necessarily as obsessive as most. Think of your coworker who's only been to the theater to see Barbie and Spider-Man, but really enjoyed their time. We have the old head, who only buys original pressings of their favorite records, and who won't shut the fuck up about the death of Technicolor. And in the opposite direction, you have the niche experimentalist, who couldn't tell you who directed Whiplash, but will gladly talk about how underrated 964 Pinocchio is. Then there's the Stan, who complains on Twitter that the 1975 tour footage they watched should be loggable on Letterboxd, the Pearl Clutcher, who will beg you to stop listening to Sonic Youth because of that one time they were mean to Nardwuar, the entertainment junkie who can't stand critiques of blockbusters because they're supposed to be fun, not serious, and the goremonger who refuses to watch anything less violent than a literal snuff film. Am I being incredibly reductive for comedic purposes? Absolutely. Does every single person fit onto this list? Not even close. But even looking at this shitty chart, most of the people in the middle could still be grouped towards our original extremes. Herein lies the problem that I'm trying to solve. The two ends of the spectrum fucking suck. And not only is it impossible to enter any of these spaces without encountering them, they are actively anti-art. On one hand, you have a group of people who deitizes a very small grouping of Western artists and shuns anything outside of that box. And on the other hand, you have a group of people who requires a certain level of knowledge as an admission fee to the community. It's absurd that this feels like the two options. It's ridiculous that this is the state of culture. And to be honest, it feels like it's getting worse. So let's follow the trail backwards and figure out exactly how we got here. You are 18 years old. Your favorite movie is La Haine, and your favorite song is The Glow Part 2 by The Microphones. In a few weeks, you will leave home to attend film school, and you're very proud. Sometime late at night, you drive your beat-up 2008 Camry Hybrid to the top of the hill next to your high school. As your old favorites play through the shitty speakers, you start to sob. During a moment of introspection, you feel a pang of guilt. You realize you're crying tears of relief. The catalyst of this video happened a while back when discourse broke out all over the internet about Letterboxd celebrity top 4 videos. Letterboxd is a film-centered social media platform where people can post their scores and reviews of movies for all their friends to see, like, and comment on. One of their more popular features is that every profile has the user's hand-selected top 4 films right at the top. That way, when you click on someone's username, you can immediately get a feel for their taste. I personally love this feature. I think it's a great way of instantly getting a feel of someone's taste. I like when people have unique ways of ordering them. Some people like myself try to choose 4 films that they think makes up their taste the most. Other people will do their favorite 4 of the month. There's limitless possibilities with those 4 slots. And something really cool is that Letterboxd has been going to red carpets and doing interviews with actors and directors and other people in film and asking them what their top 4 films are. And look, as a cinematographer and a film nerd, I love these videos. I found some of my favorite movies and directors just from watching filmmakers talk about the things that they love and the movies that inspired them. But as these videos grew and grew in popularity, so did the satire.
My top 3 movies of all time? Wow. You might not like my answers. As a film student myself, a connoisseur of the industry, I can't help but feel that I have a much higher level of comprehension when it comes to film than the average American. So forgive me if I don't tell you the latest Marvel movie or Legally Blonde. No, I think that I bring much more insight to this discussion than that. Wow, I think my number 3 right now, my number 3 has to be Van Eriksen's Cooch and Trunk. Historically, I'm not a big fan of pre-1960s Western German musical biopics, but they just tell his stories so beautifully. This is actually the only European film in history to exclusively use the mandolin for the score. Just an amazing pulchritudinous film, if I'm being honest.
And it just feels a little bit disheartening. I don't want to come off like I'm defending some elite classroom criticism, because that's not what it is. I just don't understand what people expect. If you were to ask the average American who their favorite historical figure is, you'd probably get a lot of very popular people, probably someone that we learned about in school, whether it be a president or Jesus or Gandhi or someone in that category. But if you were at an event specifically for history professors and scholars, you'd probably get a way more diverse and niche array of answers. And of course you would. These are people who have spent years of their life studying their craft, learning about the things that they like. It makes sense that you would get a wider pool of answers. And this doesn't mean that their opinion is somehow more valid than the guy who said his favorite historical figure is Adam Sandler, but it does mean that they've spent more time looking at the options. So why are we expecting any less from people whose profession is in the film industry? It would be a completely different conversation if this was an instance where some dickhead hotshot director just randomly started talking about his 4 movies to a stranger for no reason. But these are artists, usually at the premiere of their own work, being asked personally what their favorite films are. Why are we expecting them not to give passionate, researched answers? But who gives a singular fuck if they're talking about movies that you haven't seen? If anything, that's a preferred answer because it means that you learn something. And by the way, for every top 4 that looks like this, there's another one that looks like this. It's not like every person that comes through is giving the same 4 French films. In fact, most lists are made up of both popular films and lesser-known ones, because popularity does not equal quality, substance does. We have gotten to a point where we are satirizing the idea of spreading art. But the pendulum swings both ways, because for every comment saying, "Oh, we get it, bro, you're different," there's a comment critiquing the same top 4 for not being different enough. I mean, it's a fucking miracle that I feel comfortable enough to sit here and still talk about music and movies, because I finally feel like I've accrued enough knowledge to have a seat at this imaginary table. So now that we understand how these toxic archetypes can directly affect culture, I actually think that it's really easy to start to speculate on why this is happening. The first is a lack of media literacy. A while ago, I found a TikTok where someone was trying to make the argument that American English classes are the same as media literacy classes. And that idea kept nagging at me, so I made this tiny little response video.
I would argue that modern-day high school English classes do more to erase media literacy than build it. As someone who took 4 years of English classes at a public high school in the US, really the only kind of media we ever digested was westernized classic novels. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of great books that we read, and I'm very happy for it, but we never really branched out to any other sort of media, with the exception of the occasional movie, but that was usually just like a reward for finishing a book. And so while, yes, students are learning about critical analysis skills in their English classes, they're being framed around just one small sect of one kind of media. And because of that, people don't know to apply these critical thinking skills to other things like film and television and images and advertising and journalism. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so as someone who is in film school now, one of the first classes we ever took was trying to teach us to take all the reading comprehension skills that we learned in English class and apply that to the films that we consume on a daily basis. But most people don't go to film school. and aren't going to have a professor sit down and teach them how to take all the skills they learned in high school and apply them to the real world.
So that's problem number one. On a base educational level, American schools are failing to make kids excited to apply literary skills to other forms of art. But not just that, they're failing to make kids excited to dissect and discuss the media that they love. The second issue is everything. There is so much all the time. The device that you're watching this on right now likely has access to every poem, painting, photo, movie, song, album ever made. And that is equal parts incredible and terrifying. It's beautiful that we have the ability to consume so much art from all across the globe, but it's also daunting. We've grown so accustomed to constantly taking this stuff in, often by ourselves. And not to get all old heady on you, but you used to have to physically walk to a space to watch a movie or to buy an album. Being in a public space and having to talk to people about what you're listening to and what you're watching used to be a prerequisite to consuming art. But this vast abundance of material that you have readily available in private has created like a pseudo race amongst people. Some people rush to take in as much as they can and consider themselves better for having this library of knowledge and information. That's the know-it-alls. Others choose to stick to what critics universally love and dismiss the rest of the bunch. That way they have a way smaller sample size they feel like they need to see or listen to. And those would be the domestics. And with all that being said, it just feels so stupid. You are 20 years old. Your favorite movie is Naked, and your favorite song is Microphones in 2020. You're journaling, and you realize that you're lacking the ability to connect with some of your peers. You write down the sentence, "If not here, then where?" You realize very quickly that you have no idea. It is absolutely undeniable that I have said some ridiculously stupid things on this channel. The entire premise of my Bread EP video is enough to dismiss every thought that I had before I was 19. But I was also a high schooler who played water polo. In the scope of my limited knowledge, most things seem new and unheard of and underground. I first started making these videos because I had no one to talk to about my interests. And that just really bummed me out at the time. And so when I posted that MF Doom video and it blew up, I felt torn between two worlds. On the one hand, I felt shunned from online echo chambers because a lot of people told me that I just didn't have enough to say to be able to talk about these things. I just didn't know enough. But yet, in real life, everyone I talked to had no idea what the fuck I was talking about. Everything I listened to, everything I watched was labeled extreme. It's like when you're at that awkward age where you feel like you're too old to sit at the kids' table, but none of the adults want to talk to you. It's like a transitional period. I said earlier that it's a miracle that I'm sitting here still talking about music, and that's because I can't help but think of all the kids who are my age, who were looking for people to talk to, for a community to reach out to, and were shunned by some douchebag on Discord. And I'm horrified that I'm coming off as pretentious or condescending, but really this is just a 20-minute video of me begging for a kinder community. The byproduct of having to deal with this bullshit for so long in my own life is extreme. The fatigue that I have from forcing myself to listen to so much music when I first started this channel is horrible. I sometimes go weeks or months without listening to new music and just holding on to the stuff that I originally fell in love with, because I pushed myself to listen to anything that made people think that I was knowledgeable. And of course, in that process, I found so many albums that I love, so many movies that I love. But I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to do that. And people shouldn't have made me think that I had to do that. And while I will concede that a lot of that is baked into my psyche, I'm a completionist by nature, but a lot of it wasn't. Liking things sucks now. You are 21 years old. After stopping for a bite to eat, you and a friend sit down at the Academy Museum to watch, for the first time, Lawrence of Arabia on 70mm film. At intermission, an elderly couple asks what you think and tells you the story of when they first saw the film for the first time during its official release. Finally, you take your seat, and the 4-minute overture begins, signaling that the film will resume shortly. You think to yourself, there is nothing else except for this. And Act 2 begins.
It's me, They're making a movie about me.
No way.
Yeah, it's up there, that poster. Don't look under the bed.
I'm fortunate enough to live close to a city like LA, meaning that I have access to the many artistic spaces it has to offer. Whether it's the extraordinary DVD collection at Cinephile Video Rentals, and the kind and passionate volunteer workers at the Frida in Santa Ana, or music venues like Coaxial and Lodge Room, the opportunities for in-person community building are varied and many. It's places like these where the extreme online caricatures that seem inevitably entwined with modern art culture are almost nowhere to be seen. I can't count the number of times that I've met passionate, grounded strangers simply because I struck up a conversation at a record store or because I asked someone how they felt about a movie outside of the theater after it ended. So yeah, I guess my pseudo resolution is to touch grass, but it's also more complicated than that. I have the luxury of being close to the movie and music capital of the country, arguably the world, and I recognize that not everyone has the ability to drive for an hour and walk into a packed house screening of Badlands on 35mm. But if you do, it is more important than ever to support these public spaces in any way you can, whether it's showing up for movie screenings, donating if possible, buying merchandise, whatever. And more important than that, be kind. Communicate with empathy, share the art you love, discuss the art you hate, take that long car ride home with a friend to process how you feel about that movie you saw, seek out that small artist with only 4,000 monthly listeners who only creates for the sake of catharsis, participate in healthy consumption without the regulation of judgmental others. Thank you.